Okay, waiting for everything to kick on so that I can test everything out, make sure it's running correctly. Let me see what's going on here. Oh, I've got to make sure this is on the right settings. Yeah, there we go. All right. Sounds good on Rumble. Checking YouTube out, making sure that the stream is going into the proper playlist on YouTube. And after that, I will check the audio. Well, I have a chance I can actually put the thumbnail on there too. So this is going to be an episode of Esoteric Agenda, our late night edition, which I decided to. There you go. Hello, Detective Fallen. It's great to see you too. Thanks for showing up in the chat. I really appreciate that. Let me see if I can. Distracted me. I was excited. Somebody actually came in and said hi. See how pathetic things are, bud. So, let me see here. Live stream. Get this set up. Now, just before I get started, Detective Fallen, I'm going to let you know I get pretty weird on this when I start talking about the esoterics, things like alchemy, things like the Freemasons. I just went over that. And before that, I was talking about old pagan esoteric beliefs, things of that nature. So I go over some stuff that's more, it is historic, but it's more esoteric about magic, alchemy, and stuff like that. So that's what this is basically about. Here, let me see here. Just so everybody knows, Detective Fallen is one of my gamer buddies. We hang out on Home Away from YouTube on Discord. If anybody wants to check that out, you can go there and check it out. Me, Detective Fallen, Old John, and a few others. So um, there's my shout out for Detective Fallen and Home Away from YouTube. Yeah, it's pretty fun actually. I do enjoy doing it. Detective Fallen, it sounds like fun. So let me go ahead and continue doing my audio test. Suppose apparently it sounds good on YouTube because Detective Fallen's having a conversation. It sounds good on D Live. I also have the stream going on Rumble, X, Twitch, Kick, and of course YouTube and D Live. So sounds like everything is up and ready to go. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and get on with the topic. Now, last week I went over the children of Lamech, which was an old uh, it was an older part of the Freemasons before they started using Hiram Abiff, and it consisted of the stories about the pillars as well as the story about the um, you know what I'm saying. It was about the pillars and stuff of that nature. Now, this week I am going to go ahead and move forward because in previous videos I've already gone over things like uh, the Masons and talked about the children of Lamech and things of that nature. So this week, what I want to do is I want to move into the Arab philosophers. Like I mentioned last week, the Philosopher's Stone, you got to remember The name by itself means something. It doesn't say the stone that turns metal into gold, or it doesn't say the transmutation stone. It says the philosopher's stone, and that right there means quite a bit. Okay, it, it goes off the premise that these things were written by philosophers back in the during ancient times, and it's filled with wisdom and things of that nature. So when I talk about alchemy, I'm usually talking about ancient alchemy rather than the newer, more popular alchemy that was created in the Middle Ages. So um, now, besides alchemy and magic, there is another side of the esoterics that a lot of people don't know about, and this is where we start getting into it. It concerns the Brethren of Purity. Now, they were in an enigmatic collective of thinkers who emerged during the Islamic Golden Age. Though their exact identities remain a mystery, it is widely believed that they lived in Basra and possibly Baghdad. Now, this group of philosophers, scholars, and mystics wrote a vast compendium of knowledge known as the Epistles of the Brethren of Purity. Their writings formed an encyclopedia of philosophical, religious, scientific, and esoteric knowledge. Now, the Brethren aim to unify human understanding through synthesis of Greek, Persian, and Indian and Islamic traditions, weaving rational inquiry with spiritual insight. Now, they believed that the soul originated in the divine realm and fell into the material world, becoming veiled by bodily distractions. Their ultimate goal was to purify the soul through knowledge and virtue so it could ascend back to its original divine source. Now, this belief reflected ideas found in Neoplatonism, Gnosticism, and various esoteric traditions. Yet the Brethren gave it a unique Islam form. Their method emphasized the harmony of the cosmos and the importance of understanding one's place within it. The epistles were divided into four main parts. The first dealt with mathematics, including geometry, arithmetic, music, and astronomy. These sciences were not only viewed as technical disciplines, but also as symbolic symbols that reflected the structure of the universe. Geometry represented the order of creation. Arithmetic revealed the harmony behind multiplicity, and music was a reflection of celestial rhythms. Astronomy, in turn, showed how the divine will was manifested through the movement of the heavens. Now, the second part explored natural sciences. This included biology, zoology, botany, and cosmology. The Brethren treated the natural world as a living text written by the Creator. Every plant, animal, and mineral had meaning and purpose. By studying nature, one could uncover divine wisdom. The Brethren were deeply interested in understanding how the microcosm of the human being reflected the macrocosm of the cosmos. For them, nature was not separate from the divine, but a manifestation of it. The third section focused on the psychological and philosophical sciences, including logic, ethics, and metaphysics. Here the Brethren argued that reason was a divine tool granted to humanity to guide the soul back to its source. They believed that truth could only be achieved through a combination of intellectual training and ethical refinement. The path to enlightenment was not only about learning, but also about cultivating virtues such as humility, friendship, and self restraint. Community was central to their worldview. They believed that seekers should form cooperative bonds, mirroring the order and balance found in nature. And the final section delved into theology and mystical doctrine. It covered prophecy, the afterlife, cosmology, and eschatology. Now, the Brethren taught that all religions pointed towards the same essential truth, though their outward expressions varied. They viewed prophets as messengers of wisdom, each tailored to the needs of a particular time and people. Their universalism stood out at a time when religious exclusivity was common. Now, this inclusive outlook extended into their mystical teachings, where they described the soul's journey through celestial spheres, eventually returning to the presence of the divine. One of the most intriguing aspects of their writings was the use of allegory and parable. Through fables and symbolic stories, they encoded philosophical insights. A well-known example is the story of the animals who send a letter to the king of the humans, pleading their case for equality. This narrative serves as both a critique of human arrogance and a meditation for the rights and dignity of all creatures. It illustrated how every part of creation reflects divine wisdom and deserves moral consideration. The Brethren were also deeply influenced in Hermeticism and other forms of esoteric knowledge. They believed in the unity of all things and the interconnectedness of the cosmos. Alchemy, astronomy, and numerology were seen not just as sciences, but as paths to spiritual awakening. The transmutation of base metals into gold symbolized the elevation of the soul from ignorance to wisdom. The harmony of the stars was a celestial language, revealing the divine order that permeates all levels of reality. Their approach to knowledge was holistic. They did not separate science from spirituality or philosophy from religion. Instead, they sought an integrated understanding of the universe. The human being, as the microcosm, was a mirror of the macrocosm. Everything that existed outside also existed within. Self-knowledge, therefore, was not merely personal but cosmic. To understand oneself was to understand the universe and the divine mind that created it. Now, the Brethren also emphasized the concept of purification. To them, true learning was inseparable from moral and spiritual refinement. Knowledge that was not rooted in virtue was considered incomplete, even dangerous. Their teachings encouraged constant self-examination and spiritual practice. They promoted a balanced life, blending contemplation with action, solitude with community, and study with service. Their work resonated with various esoteric traditions throughout history. Later, Sufi thinkers drew upon their writings. Ismaili philosophers echoed their universalist and allegoric approach. Jewish philosophers in medieval Spain and Christian mystics in the Renaissance also engaged with their ideas. Their influence reached far beyond the Islamic world, touching anyone who sought wisdom in the unity of knowledge. Now we have a comment from Detective Fallen. He said, Druid nerds, no hate. I'm not a nerd. And spiritual leaders, if I'm understanding. Yeah, that's what it is. Druids, nerds, no hate. I'm too a nerd. Okay, I get you. And spiritual leaders, if I'm understanding it. Yeah, that's basically what they were. Now, Al Kindi came out of this group. Now, Al Kindi was a very important person when it came to the esoterics. And he's somebody that's really not mentioned all that much when it comes to this topic. You'll hear about a whole bunch of other people, but not too many people know about Al Kindi. He was probably one of the most influential people when it came to this topic, to be honest with you. So just to let everybody know, Al Kindi was also known as the philosopher of the Arabs. That's how famous he was. And he is often celebrated for his mathematical, medical, and philosophical works. Yet beneath these intellectual achievements lies a rich and nuanced mystical tradition, one that reveals his deep engagement with spiritual transformation, metaphysical symbolism, and the soul's ascent towards divine unity. Al-Kindi's mystical orientation began with his profound appreciation for the unity of being. While he drew heavily on the Neoplatonic and Aristotelian systems, he did not see knowledge as merely objective. He believed that every branch of learning, from music to mathematics, carried within it an inner dimension, a means by which the soul may be gently led upward through reflection of beauty and order towards a higher, ineffable source. The harmony of musical intervals, the regularity of geometric figures, even the precision of arithmetic, all became symbolic overtures demonstrating the soul's intrinsic affinity to cosmic unity. One of Al-Kindi's most spiritual oriented teachings concerns light. For him, light serves as both a physical phenomena and a metaphysical archetype, a manifestation of divine presence. Physical light evokes a spiritual parallel. Just as light dispels darkness in the material world, divine illumination enlivens the soul, guiding it from ignorance to wisdom. In meditative contemplation, one might dwell upon the nature of light, attuning the heart to the inner luminosity. Al-Kindi also placed great emphasis on the significance of the cosmic correspondence known as the macrocosm microcosm. He taught that human beings, which he sometimes referred to as the little worlds or macrocosms, contain within their souls structured reflections of the broader cosmic order. Each faculty of the soul, each yearning for truth or beauty, corresponds to an aspect of the celestial realm. The contemplative practice involves cultivating awareness of this alignment, then gradually internalizing the celestial harmonic and finding one's place in the celestial chorus. His writings include guidance on spiritual practices that gently evokes the transformative power of silence and stillness. Drawing on Quranic metaphor and Neoplatonic contemplative methods, Al-Kindi recommended periods of retreat from sensory distractions, during which the soul might withdraw from the chaos of the external world and transmute its attention towards the inner light. In such states, even the beating of the heart or the rhythm of the breath became vehicles of remembrance, tenders of presence that guide the soul homeward. Al-Kindi also evoked sacred names and sounds as tools of spiritual elevation, not spells in the magical sense, but rather as reflections on divine attributes expressed through particular rhythms of speech and intention. For example, reciting and meditating upon words linked to mercy, power, or beauty could tune the soul's inner attunement. These names became contemplative gateways, each opening a window through which divine qualities might shine into the human heart. The practice echoes the broader Islamic mystical tradition of dhikr, remembrance, but al-Kindi filtered it through philosophical rigor and symbolic layering. Alchemy for al-Kindi was more than a quest for transmuting metals. In its deeper sense, the transmutation of lead into gold was a metaphor for the cultivation of virtue, refinement of character, and elevation of the intellect or the elect from base self-interest to luminous nobility. The alchemical opus mirrored the soul's journey, distilling impurities, combining virtues, and ultimately attaining a unified light. Astrology, too, occupied a mystical plane in his teachings. He taught that the movements of the heavens reflect divine moods and cycles. Though he valued its scientific dimensions, he also saw the celestial bodies as intelligence, symbols of divine wisdom in motion. The soul, by observing these rhythms, could calibrate its own temporal and moral orientations. In aligning one's inner cycles with the cosmos, one participates in the living pattern of creation. Underlying all these practices is al-Kindi's conviction that science and spirituality are two wings of the same flight. True knowledge is that which refines the soul, fosters moral beauty, and leads to a state of heartfelt closeness to the divine. Without this inner transformation, knowledge becomes either vain sophistry or hollow technique. Al-Kindi's mystical insights are also woven through his reflections on prophecy and the soul's capacity for divine inspiration. He believed that true prophecy did not stem from external visions alone, but from purification and illumination of the heart. In his view, the soul that had undergone rigorous cultivation through silence, moral discipline, and philosophical insight became receptive to a higher kind of intuition. This inner knowing was not magical per se, but the clear reflection of divine truth within a heart attuned to it. Such a soul could perceive connections between outer events and inner needs, act with wisdom, and sometimes utter words that carried a resonance beyond their immediate meaning. Central to al-Kindi's mystical teaching is the notion of moral alchemy. He compared the soul to a vessel containing volatile and coarse substances that must be heated, stirred, and distilled. Through disciplines such as fasting of the tongue, and control of the passions, the soul gradually sheds its weights, anger, desire, envy, and becomes lighter, more transparent to the divine light. This purification is not asceticism, no, asceticism, no, ascetism is not. This purification is not asceticism for its own sake, but spiritual refinement, a process divine to render the soul worthy of knowledge and closeness to God. There's another word that I had issues with right there, ascetism. That word is spelled Asceticism. Now, in his commentaries, even the most mundane aspect of human experience acquire symbolic potential. Eating becomes a sacrament when done with gratitude, attention, and moderation. Listening transforms into a form of worship, one who hears the voice of the Beloved in all things. Walking through the garden becomes a meditation upon divine beauty, as one discerns the echo of the garden of paradise in the harmony of creation. In each of these simple acts, Al-Kindi invites the seeker to perceive the deeper reality hidden behind the veil of forms. The practice of solitude and interior reflection holds a prominent place in his spiritual ecosystem. Al-Kindi encourages seekers to turn their attention inward and remain vigilant against the distraction of fame, noise, and indulgence. He likens the undisciplined soul to a lamp clogged with soot. No matter how bright its fire, its glow is obscure. Regular periods of quietude, retreat, and study are necessary to clean the lamp so that the divine light can shine clearly. These retreats need not be long journeys. A single night in stillness with the intention of remembrance and reflection can open vast inner spaces. Despite his intellectual stature, Al-Kindi spoke often about humility. He warned that the mind, when untethered by reverence and gratitude, can become a source of arrogance and self-worship. Eternal knowledge belongs to the divine alone. The highest aspiration of the seeker is not to accumulate titles or even truths, but to be entrusted with wisdom as a sacred responsibility. Every insight is a gift, meant to be shared with compassion and used for the good of humanity. Al-Kindi's symbolic interpretation of the human body as a microcosm of the universe also has mystical depth. Just as the body has nerves and vessels, the cosmos has unseen networks of power. Just as the body can be nourished or wounded, the soul too can flourish or fall into sickness. By caring for the body without indulgence, and for the soul without neglect, the seeker honors the divine harmony that runs through both. This ethic of moderation underscores all of his spiritual teachings. His work on cosmic harmony includes reflections on the alignment of celestial bodies with moral qualities. He believed that the signs of the heavens spoken in allegory in Scripture echoed their metaphysical function. Thus, planets and constellations were not random lights, but parts of a living cosmic choir. The seeker, by studying their harmony, could calibrate personal action to cosmic rhythm, becoming a participant in the ongoing act of creation rather than a stranger within it. One of the most remarkable aspects of Al-Kindi's mystical vision is its integration of form and formlessness. He taught that the divine names and the structural pattern of geometry were reflections of the same underlying truth. Both as attributes and archetypal forms, they invited the soul to enter the sanctuary of unity. Meditating upon a name like mercy or measure led towards the same awakening as gazing at the proportions of a well-drawn circle. The difference lay in the method, not the destination. Al-Farabi, sometimes called the second teacher after Aristotle, stands as one of the most luminous figures in the philosophical and mystical heritage of the Islamic world. His life spanned a time of profound and intellectual flourishing, when scholars in cities like Baghdad, Damascus, and Cairo were translating and expanding upon the works of ancient Greece, Persia, and India. While he is widely respected for his contributions to logic, sociology, political philosophy, and science, there is a deeper mystical there is a deeper mystical dimension to his thought that speaks directly to seekers of spiritual wisdom. At the heart of Farabi's mystical orientation lies his understanding of the unity of existence. He embraced a philosophy that regarded the cosmos as a harmonious whole, an emanation from a single divine source. In this view, every part of creation, stone and star, plant and person, reflects the same underlying reality, though in degrees of proximity to its source. Farabi used the metaphor of light to describe this emanation. As the sun radiates illumination that enables sight and life, so the first cause, or the necessary existent, emits pure existence that sustains all being. This radiant image becomes a central theme of his mystical teachings. According to Farabi, the human soul is equipped with a capacity to receive his divine light. Through reason and imagination, it perceives the truth. Yet reason alone is insufficient if not combined with moral discipline and inner refinement. Farabi taught that the soul must be disciplined through virtues such as courage, temperament, generosity, justice, and humility. By cultivating these qualities, the seeker aligns the soul's character with the structure of the divine intellect and becomes capable of experiencing a higher kind of knowledge, one that is participatory and luminous rather than merely discursive. Farabi regarded prophecy and illumination as higher forms of knowing. The prophetic soul, purified and perfected, could receive direct uh, intellection. Could receive direct intellection from the divine realm. He saw prophetic knowledge not as a suspension of reason, but its culmination. Prophets in his understanding are those whose souls are so attuned to the divine intellect that they can apprehend universal thoughts without relying solely on sensory perception. Their teachings guide communities towards moral excellence and spiritual awakening. Central to Farabi's mystical vision is the idea of the virtuous city. In his major work on ideal governance, he describes a state governed by enlightened rulers and citizens who pursue justice and happiness. This project is insufficiently described as political theory alone, for it also represents a spiritual community. By shaping social institutions and citizens' characters, the virtuous city becomes a reflection of cosmic harmony. Farabi thus creates a bridge between the mystical interior journey and the communal order of society. Spiritual growth is not a solitary endeavor, but one that flourishes within the supportive structure of a moral community. Farabi's writings also bring into focus the role of music and the sciences as spiritual disciplines. Unlike those who saw these as purely pragmatic, he understood music and geometry to be gateways to the divine. Geometry reveals the proportional beauty inherent in creation, while music awakens the soul to harmony. In his treatise on harmony, Farabi shows how intervals and rhythms mirror patterns found in the universe and in the human intellect. By meditating on these patterns, the seeker becomes attuned to the underlying harmony of existence. The sounds of the celestial spheres, which Farabi described through his astronomical studies, were more than curiosities. They were symbolic reminders of divine order. The harmonious movement of planets and stars provided an image of the soul's own ascent as beings climb the chain of reality. They partake in higher harmonies. Inner ascension is thus a microcosmic echo of cosmic motion. Mystical practice, therefore, includes study of the heavens, not as distant phenomena, but as mirrors of the inner journey. In his epistemology, Farabi delineated various degrees of knowledge: sensor perception, imaginative reasoning, dialectical reasoning, philosophical knowledge, and prophetic intellection. This hierarchy corresponds to stages of spiritual development. One begins with the concrete world and ascends, through discipline, study, and moral effort, towards intellectual virtues. At its peak, knowledge becomes a mode of union with the necessary existence. The act of understanding then becomes an act of encountering. Knowing becomes witnessing. Farabi's mystical ethics are rooted in the idea that every action has moral and cosmic significance. When a person speaks truthfully, acts with integrity, or shows mercy, they participate in the divine will. Actions echo up through the levels of reality, contributing to the harmony of the virtuous city in the balance of creation. Conversely, harmful actions disrupt harmony and weaken the channels through which divine wisdom flows. This teaches practitioners that spirituality is not confined to prayer or meditation, but infused into every moment and act. His concept of the imaginary intellect, a faculty that links human intuition to higher truths, carries a deep mystical resonance. Through imagination, the purified soul can contemplate divine archetypes manifesting in the world. The imaginative faculty becomes a lens through which symbolic truths are grasped. The images of angels, celestial intelligence, and spiritual realities become not dreams but experiences accessible to the disciplined soul. Although Farabi owes much to Neoplatonism, he does not adopt its theology uncritically. He reformulates it within the boundaries of Islamic revealed traditions, or din. The first cause is absolute unity, but prophecy brings an aspect of that unity down into human form. The soul's ascent the soul's ascent comes through ethical perfection, rational clarity, and prophetic inspiration. This blend of philosophy, ethics, and revealed teaching makes Farabi's mysticism robust and grounded. He often uses the metaphor of music for his philosophical teachings. Just as multiple voices in harmony produce a single melody, so do souls harmonize with the divine when aligned with ethical and spiritual law. The person who can harmonize inner faculties is like a musician who blends tones into song. Such a person then becomes a living harmony, reflecting the cosmic symphony. In practical terms, Farabi recommended fasting, solitary reflection, prayer, ethical self-scrutiny, and philosophical conversation as ways to purify the soul. He urged seekers to associate with companions of virtue, learning in community, practicing patience, and engaging in honest discourse were vital. Silence and speech, solitude and communion are held in balanced relation. One of Farabi's lasting gifts is his demonstration that mysticism need not abandon reason. Rather, reason is the discipline through which the soul reaches toward the divine. Discursive thought clears the ground, while illumination fills it with light. The journey of the seeker is therefore both intellectual and luminous. In continuing the mystical journey that Al-Farabi outlined, one is drawn into a deeper consideration of his understanding of the soul and its purification. For Al-Farabi, the human soul is a layered being that begins with appetitive and perceptive faculties shared with animals, but rises toward a rational faculty that makes humanity capable of knowing the divine. However, this rational soul does not emerge automatically. It must be cultivated through ethical behavior, study, and reflection. The rational soul is polished like a mirror until it becomes capable of reflecting the light of the first cause. The process of soul cultivation is never solitary. Al-Farabi described the soul or spiritual seeker as one who relies on the guidance of a perfected teacher, often metaphorically aligned with the philosopher/prophet. This teacher, who unites rational insight with divine inspiration, plays the same role in the life of a seeker as a star might in the navigation of a journey. Just as ancient mariners steered their ships by the positions of the stars, so does the seeker navigate towards truth by the luminous guidance of the wise. Al-Farabi's cosmology also played an important role in his mystical vision. He envisioned the universe as a cascading series of intelligence, each derived from the one above it. At the apex stands the necessary existent, the origin of all being. From this emanates the first intellect, then the second, continuing downward until the active intellect, which is nearest to the material world. This active intellect is the source of all human inspiration, insight, and prophecy. When Al-Farabi spoke of spiritual ascent, he referred not to a movement in space, but to a transformation of consciousness. The purified soul rises through stages of awareness until it becomes aligned with the active intelligence or intellect, and then, in moments of grace, glimpses even higher truths. This structure also explains why Al-Farabi placed such importance on imagination. Imagination, when purified, becomes a ladder for the soul. It allows divine truths to appear in symbolic forms that can be grasped by the human mind. Prophets, according to Al-Farabi, are those who have perfected this faculty to such an extent that the images they receive are accurate representations of divine realities. In this framework, dreams, visions, and sacred symbols are not distractions, but doors to a higher world. Even his political writing reveal mystical depths. The virtuous city, in his thought, is more than an ideal republic. It is the external form of an internal truth. The soul that lives in justice and harmony mirrors the just city, and the just city in turn reinforces the virtue of its citizens. In this way, the political becomes a kind of alchemy where social structures transmute base desires into noble aspirations. When the leader of such a city is a philosopher prophet, society is guided not only by law but by wisdom, and the people are nurtured toward both temporal well-being and eternal felicity. Al-Farabi also taught that true happiness cannot be found in the material realm alone. It resides in union with the eternal, the divine. The pursuit of wealth, fame, or pleasure distracts the soul from its proper end. Only by turning inward and aligning one's life with the cosmic order can lasting happiness be found. This view echoes through the mystical traditions that followed him. where joy is not an emotion but a state of harmony between the soul and the divine. He also saw a mystical value in the arts. Music, especially, was seen as a tool for soulcraft. In his treatise on music, Al-Farabi describes the emotional and psychological effects of tones and rhythms, arguing that the right music could stir the soul towards virtue or calm the passions. This echoes the view of the ancient philosophers who believed that the harmony of music mirrors the harmony of the spheres and thus guides the soul towards the divine. The emphasis on virtue is especially important. For Al-Farabi, no amount of theoretical knowledge could compensate for the corrupt soul. Knowledge, if not joined to virtue, becomes dangerous. This is why he insisted that the philosopher must first be morally upright. Ethics is the ground upon which the tree of wisdom grows. Without that ground, the tree cannot take root. Even his description of death carries mystical weight. Death, he taught, is not annihilation, but a transition. The soul, having shed its physical form, ascends towards the source of its being. If it has been purified, it merges with the realm of the intellect. If it remains attached to base desires, it wanders, confused and heavy, unable to rise. This eschatological vision is both moral and spiritual. It calls the seeker to a life of discipline, love, and inner awakening. Al-Farabi's works also reflect an awareness of spiritual solitude. True understanding, he taught, often arises in silence. The seeker must retreat from the distractions of the world to listen to the inner voice of the reason and divine prompting. Solitude is not withdrawal, but a reorientation. It prepares the soul to re-engage with the world from a place of depth and clarity. In many of his philosophical writings, there is a clear trace of what might be called mystical humility. Al-Farabi frequently warned against intellectual pride. The more one knows, the more one becomes aware of the vastness of what remains unknown. This humility opens the door to grace, allowing the divine to enter and transform the seeker from within. He also saw language as sacred. For Al-Farabi, the words he spoke shaped the reality we experience. This is why philosophers and prophets are so careful with their language. In the mystical tradition that followed him, this idea blossomed into the notion that divine names, when spoken with purity and intention, can unlock spiritual insight. While Al-Farabi himself did not practice the repetition of divine names as later mystics would, his reverence for the sacred nature of language laid the groundwork for this development. Avicenna, also known as Ibn Sina, stands as one of the most influential thinkers in the history of mysticism and philosophy within the Islamic world and far beyond. Born in the region of Baja in the eastern lands of the Islamic world. He grew up in an environment steeped in learning, science, and religious inquiry. Over the course of his life, he produced a wide body of writings that encompassed not only medicine and logic, but also metaphysics, cosmology, and esoteric thought. While many today remember him primarily for his medical contributions, particularly the uh, monumental work, monumental work, often called the canon of medicine, his mystical and esoteric teachings offer a deep and expansive view into the human soul, the nature of the cosmos, and the journey towards divine reality. Uh, okay, now, Detective Fallen, I appreciate you stopping in. Thanks for coming in and listening, and I hope you enjoy your night. I've finally seen your comments, so I figured I'd give you a shout out. Again, everybody, check out Detective Fallen on YouTube, as well as his Discord channel, which is called Home Away from YouTube. It's a pretty good channel. Give it a quick check, and I'm pretty sure you'd like it. So, I'm giving you a shout out and thanks for stopping by. Okay, so now let me go ahead and get back to where I was. Okay. While many today remember him primarily for his medical contributions, particularly the monumental work often called the Canon of Medicine, his mystical and esoteric teachings offer a deep and expansive view into the human soul, the nature of the cosmos, and the journey toward divine reality. Central to Avicenna's esoteric vision was the concept of emanation, drawing on earlier traditions, especially the Neoplatonic framework that had filtered through Arabic philosophy. He imagined the universe as emerging from a singular and undivided source. This source, which he described as the necessary being, is pure existence without multiplicity, contingency, or limitation. From this source all things flow, not by choice or effort, but by the very nature of its perfection. The first thing to emanate from this source is the first intellect, which itself gives rise to successive intelligences, each associated with a celestial sphere, until the chain reaches the active intellect, the final of these emanations. The active intellect plays a critical role in human spiritual development. It serves as the bridge between the divine realm and the material world. It is through the active intellect that human beings receive illumination, insight, and the potential for prophecy. This belief established Avicenna's vision of divine communication, not as a violation of natural laws, but as a deep harmony between the purified human soul and the celestial order. In his cosmology, Avicenna described the human soul as originating in the intelligible realm. It is sent down into the material world to be joined with the body, where it experiences trial, discipline, and the potential for spiritual ascent. Unlike animals whose souls are bound by instinct and morality, the human soul is rational and immortal. Its goal is to return to the realm of pure intelligibility, purified of all attachments to the material world. This ascent is not automatic. It requires discipline, knowledge, virtue, contemplation, and contemplation. When the soul fails to purify itself, it remains attached to form and sensation. But when it succeeds, it rises through the celestial spheres, ultimately merging with the realm of pure intellect. This idea of a return to the divine became one of the defining elements of Avicenna's mystical thought. The soul, in his view, is like a traveler who has become disoriented in a foreign land. It longs to return home, but must navigate a complex world of illusions and distractions. Philosophy, ethics, and mysticism serve as tools for this journey, providing direction, cleansing the soul of ignorance, and reuniting it with its origin. One of Avicenna's most enigmatic contributions to mystical thought appears in his allegorical writings. These texts, written in the form of visions or parables, bypass formal argument and appeal directly to the intuition of the reader. One such tale speaks of a solitary bird who leaves its cage and soars towards the sun, a clear metaphor for the soul's flight toward divine truth. These writings demonstrate Avicenna's belief that philosophical truths must be internalized, not just understood. Intellectual knowledge, no matter how rigorous, is incomplete without transformation of the self. These parables often explore themes of solitude, transformation, divine love, and spiritual liberation. Avicenna's belief in the harmony between philosophy and revelation is also central to his mystical teachings. He saw no contradictions between reason and faith, between the discoveries of the philosopher and the insights of the prophet. Both are oriented towards truth, though they speak in different languages. Where philosophy uses argument and syllogism, prophecy uses images, symbols, and parables. The goal of both, however, is union with the divine and the guidance of the soul towards perfection. His understanding of prophecy follows naturally from his metaphysical system. The prophet, in Avicenna's view, is someone whose soul has achieved such a degree of purity and attunement that it becomes a perfect mirror of the active intellect. This mirror reflects not only universal truths but also symbolic forms, which take shape in the imagination of the prophet and are then communicated to others. In this sense, religious symbols are not arbitrary. They are images shaped by divine insight, tailored to the understanding of the people, and filled with layered meaning that can guide both the simple and the wise. In this ethical In his ethical writings, Avicino emphasizes the role of virtue in the development of the soul. Virtue is not merely the absence of vice, but an alignment with cosmic order. Just as the heavens move in harmonious circles, so should the soul cultivate a balance and harmonious life. This balance is achieved through the mastery of the passions, the cultivation of reason, and the love of truth. The virtuous soul becomes like a well-tuned instrument resonating with the divine harmony of the universe. Avicenna also held a sophisticated view of imagination, which he saw as a faculty that lies between reason and sensation. It allows the soul to bridge the gap between abstract truths and concrete experiences. In dreams and visions, the imagination can receive impressions from the higher realms and transform them into symbols and stories. In this way, the imagination becomes a vehicle for spiritual knowledge, not simply a repository of fantasy. This insight would influence later thinkers and mystics who saw dreams and visions as legitimate forms of divine communication. Another important theme in his mystical thought is the unity of being. Though Avicino never abandoned the distinction between the creator and creation, he believed that all things derive their being from the one source. This gives the universe a deep and pervasive unity. Every particular every particle of existence points back to the necessary being. Every moment of awareness, every movement of the stars, every stirring of the soul is a sign of the divine. To live with this awareness is to live in perpetual remembrance. The mystic in this view is not someone who escapes the world, but one who sees through it, perceiving in every form a reflection of the formless source. His doctrine of love also carries mystical resonance. Love, he taught, is the movement of the soul towards beauty and perfection. It is a force that unites the seeker with the sought, the knower with the known. In the highest sense, love is the soul's longing for union with the divine. This love is not possessive or emotional, but a radiant clarity that arises from knowledge. To know the divine is to love it, and to love it is to seek union with it. Avicenna's vision of death is likewise steeped in mystical understanding. Death is not an end, but a transition. For the purified soul, it is a liberation, a return to its true home. The veils of the material world fall away, and the soul awakens to the eternal light. For the unprepared soul, however, death can be a painful awakening, exposing the illusions it clung to in life. This dual possibility places great urgency on the spiritual path. Life is a gift and a test, a chance to awaken before the moment of transition. Despite his physical, no, Despite his philosophical rigor, Avicenna remained deeply aware of the limitations of human knowledge. In his later writings, one finds a tone of humility, a recognition that ultimate truth transcends all languages and thought. Even the most refined concepts, the most precise definitions, fall short of the reality they seek to describe. This humility does not lead to despair, but to wonder. It opens the door to silence, to reverence, and to the kind of knowledge that arises from study, not from study, but from direct experience. Avicenna's mystical thought did not exist in isolation. It influenced generations of thinkers across the Islamic world, from Andalusia to Persia. His vision laid groundwork for later mystics who would integrate philosophy, poetry, and divine love into the single path of wisdom. His ideas were also transmitted into the Latin West, where they shaped Christian mysticism and scholastic philosophy. All right, so right there, I believe, is probably the best place for me to end this. Um, I will end it on Avicenna, and later when I come back, I will talk about Jabir ibn Hayyan. He is probably one of the most legendary figures in the history of science, alchemy, as well as esoteric philosophy. So I will I will end it here, and then later when I come back, I will discuss him and move on forward. And it's like I said before, these are probably people that you probably have never heard of before when it comes to um, the esoterics. These this is information that really you have to do research on. A lot of this information, thank goodness I know ways around it, but a lot of this information, for you to retain it, you got to pay for really expensive books. That's the best way of explaining it. So my best advice for anybody who really wants to get into researching this kind of stuff is to reach out and try to find people who are like-minded, and they do research into it. Also look for people who have been educated in this kind of stuff and are willing to talk about it. One of the best sources I've had is actually a YouTube channel called Esoterica. If you guys have any time, stop by there and listen to the guy. He's got a lot of good wisdom. He knows about these esoteric philosophers and the story behind them. So check him out. If you guys enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, share, make comments. Please leave comments in the comment section. I do appreciate having comments in the chat. Don't get me wrong, but making comments in the comment section helps out too. It really does. Um, if you guys have a chance to do that, and I always respond to people when they leave a comment for me. So as long as it's a real comment and it's not somebody trying to get me to buy like 500 subscribers or something like that. Again, I'd like to thank Detective Fallen for stopping into the chat and leaving comments. I do appreciate that. Um, Now, I want to tell everybody that I hope they have a good day ahead of them. It's midnight, or it's 1:15 now for me. I started this at midnight, so it's pretty late at night. I am tired, and it is time for me to go to bed. So, with that being said, I'd like to say thank you to everybody on Rumble, X, Twitch, Kick, and YouTube, as well as the live. And I will go ahead and end the stream. Thank you guys for watching through. Here we go. An hour and 15 minutes. Good going, Roger.